Good evening. I would like to call the business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is Tuesday, April 13th, 2021. The Portland Board of Public Education is meeting virtually through Zoom. May I ask the superintendent to please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Bondo.
Présente.
Mr. Burke.
Here.
Mr. Irish. Mr. Rodriguez.
Presente.
Ms. Russell-Better.
Here.
Ms. Thompson. Ms. Trevorrow.
Here.
Mr. Youssef. I see Mr. Youssef here. Ms. Allen. Ms. Boxer-McCumber. Ms. Chung.
Here.
Ms. Hill. Ms. Yangala.
Yes, I'm here.
And Chair Figdor.
Here. And I see Board Member Irish has joined us as well.
Yes.
And then Board Member Thompson can't make it tonight because she is traveling. So would everyone please unmute yourselves for the Pledge of Allegiance? And we'll get started once we see the flag. All right. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, as is now customary, we're going to start off with public comment on any issue that is not on tonight's agenda. So again, if folks, members of the public want to talk about the budget, please wait until we get to that portion of the meeting. But right now, we will take public comment on any other issues. And if you want to address the school board, please use the raise your hand feature provided by Zoom. The feature is found either on the webinar control bar at the bottom of your screen, or it can be found by selecting your name on the participant screen. Is there any public comment? Okay, we'll start with Erin Brennan. Erin, we're gonna unmute you and you can go ahead now. Oh, and Erin, I'm going to try this other number for you, I think. Okay, Erin, are you there with us?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. My name is Erin Brennan. I live at 27 Clifton Street. I have a son at Portland High. He's a junior. I just want to say he came home from in-person school yesterday. And I asked him how it went, and he said, "Mom, it was great. I learned so much better in person. What a difference that made." So I do want to say thank you for getting this started. I hope we'll consider, if this goes well, to continue to open up more hours to students. But this is a great start, and I really thank you for that. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Erin. Are there other members of the public who want to address the board tonight? If so, go ahead and use the use your hand feature so we know that you would like to speak with us, and I will go ahead and unmute you. Okay, seeing no other hands, I'm going to close public comment. And now we have the report of the chair. I'm going to keep my remarks brief now and save most of what I want to say tonight for the budget discussion. But I wanted to start off by saying Ramadan Mubarak to Board Member Youssef and to all of our Muslim staff and students and families. I wish you all joy and happiness and togetherness. Next week is April vacation, and I hope our staff can take the time to catch their breath in what's been an excruciating year that has demanded more than ever before from everyone. And with respect to the budget, I just wanted to say that as we approach our discussion and votes tonight on the FY22 budget, I'm so proud of this board. When I joined the board less than 2.5 years ago, we didn't have the same vision and coherence and unity. It didn't feel like we all had our oars in the water, paddling in the same direction, and it does now, and the change is so palpable, and each of you is to thank for that. So I wanted to thank each and every board member, and I really look forward to the discussion tonight. So with that, now we are turning to the report of the students, and tonight Ms. Yangala will provide an update from Portland Adult Ed. Ms. Yangala, the floor is yours. Although all of a sudden I do not see you.
Can you see me now?
Oh, now I see you. Go ahead. So many squares.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you and good evening, school board members. And thank you, Superintendent Botana, for the service that you do provide to our schools in Portland. Portland Adult Education has continued to provide education to our students and really appreciate your continued support in so many ways. Our school has provided remote education since March 2020 due to COVID-19 until this present, we're still remote. It has been challenging to fulfill my responsibility as PAE student representative, but with the support and mentoring of our Executive Director, Anita St. Ange, and Elizabeth Love, the Assistant Director, it has been very doable. PAE staff make it easy for me and all the students to value education in any circumstances. You can find a story that Anita shared in the Friends of Portland Adult Education Winter newsletter about students in the college transition program. Those students who are building confidence coming from a non-English background and are able to go to SMCC for electric engineer, nurses, and more other majors. It is still very unique experience on how adult students are doing in remote learning. The experience is very interesting for each student, each adult student. Some are parents who enjoy doing everything at home. That allows them to have more classes and get to learn a lot of more computer skills. Some express loneliness, not having the classmates to talk to and discuss, and still the wondering with the question, when is the big coming back to normal will come? So most importantly, PAE continue to expand its workforce training programs. Like right now, I am in the Child Development Associate Program for English learner in partnership with Opportunity Alliance to get credential in child care licensing. The class is for adult students who want to start or work in the child care business. Since I moved in Maine, my goal is to start a child care facility business in the area. I really like the class and appreciate all the information and study that I'm getting in. And I have 2 days in a week for my internship at the Catherine Morrill Child Care. We do have parents who are students, and childcare is a big need in Portland, Maine. Another example is our tailor training program. It's helping students to get a job at the local bank in Portland. And Portland Adult Education it's still a school and continue to go through even in difficult times. And thank you so much for all your help. And this is the end of my report.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yangala.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now we move to the report of the superintendent. Superintendent Botana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. And Thank you for that report, Ms. Yangala. I am very much looking forward to Friday's graduation of the second class from the Teller program. That's an exemplary program that is, just in its infancy, but is making a huge difference in our community. So amazing work at Portland Adult Ed. Portland Public Schools recognizes the original inhabitants of the land on which our city and schools stand, the Wolastoqey, Micmac, Penobscot, and Passamaquoddy tribes, known collectively as the Wabanaki Confederacy or People of the Dawnland. We're honored to have Wabanaki children among our students today, and the district is committed to making the past, present, and future of Wabanaki peoples visible in our schools and classrooms. I want to take a moment to bring attention to another young Black life inexplicably lost to police. I have no words to express my condolences to the family of Dante Wright in Minnesota, and my recognition and solidarity with our Black staff and students who once again must bear the trauma of a system that criminalizes and targets Blackness. Ramadan Kareem to Board Member Youssef, all of our Muslim families, students, and staff, as the holy month of fasting and reflection begins today. Last week, we recognized our Make It Happen program for being named the Magna Award winner for districts between 5,000 and 20,000 students by the National School Boards Association. Make It Happen, as many of you know, is a program that identifies first-generation students and helps them to aspire to and understand what they need to do to be competitive college applicants. For over 10 years, hundreds of students have been able to build their college profiles through pursuing rigorous academic experiences, preparing for college admissions, and participating in co-curricular and outside of school activities that highlight their potential. Since last week, Make It Happen was featured at the National School Boards Association Annual Conference, and that included a presentation by our very own Dr. Grace Valenzuela, and a question and answer session with some of our amazing staff and students. Tonight, I would like to share the video that the American School Boards Journal produced and used to promote the awards at the conference. So I think, Greg, you are queued up to run that.
American School Board Journal brings you the 2021 Magna Awards, recognizing excellence in equity in public education. Our winning districts, chosen by public school leaders from across the country, are removing barriers to achievement for underserved and vulnerable students. The Magna Awards 5,000 to 20,000 enrollment category recognizes Portland Public Schools in Portland, Maine. This school district's graduation rate is 87%, but for students who were in Make It Happen, a youth development program for high school students, the graduation rate is 100%.
Portland Public Schools is the largest and most diverse school district in the state of Maine.
So we have about 63 different languages that are spoken at the homes of our students. Our vision for the district is grounded on our equity work.
To serve Portland's culturally diverse population, the school district created Make It Happen, a college readiness and academic support program for multilingual and multicultural students.
At each of our high schools, we're fortunate to have Make It Happen academic centers.
Make It Happen has multiple areas that we really try to work with students on. One is very academic driven. We have academic tutors who will work with the students. Another area is the civic engagement. We try to get students involved with activities outside the classroom, get them out in the community. The third area of Make It Happen is the college process.
I felt like everything was a challenge until I got introduced to Make It Happen, and they helped me get through my struggles.
For a person who wasn't really acquainted with the education system here, I think Make It Happen was very instrumental.
It's already seeming like it's gonna be a happy ending, and thanks to Make It Happen, of course.
Make It Happen can really make things happen.
Thank you, Greg. That was worth the wait. We were going to recognize Lynn Wynn, who I know many of you. Oh, is Lynn here? I don't see her. So we must have gotten our wires crossed. So I'm going to hold off and do in person when Lynn can join us, hopefully at the next school board meeting. But Lynn, as many of you know, is an amazing Deering High School senior who has just had a pretty remarkable week. And so we wanted to recognize her, but I don't know, we got our wires crossed in some way, and I apologize for that. But Lynn, we will get you at our next meeting. I'm going to move into today's school reopening update. As it continues to be our practice, we bring you updates on developments in our school reopening plan. As you heard earlier, and as all of you know, our 10th and 12th graders returned yesterday to Deering and Portland high schools for 2 days a week of in-person hybrid instruction across the board. Casco Bay students had returned last Monday, and they successfully completed their first hybrid in-person week. Thanks to all of our high school leaders, teachers, and staff for their work to make this happen. It has been a long time since our 10th to 12th grade students have been in person for structured instruction, and it was remarkable for me. I was able to walk around at both PHS and DHS yesterday, and I can tell you that there were a lot of happy students and staff at both of our schools. I will also say that there were some kids who walked in and looked around like, where am I? So it was great to see them back. During our briefing last week, Board Member Bondo asked us to report out on the students who were opting to stay all remote as we return students to in-person instruction at the high schools. At this time, our counts show that about 300 students at Portland High School, 170 students at DHS, and 75 students at Casco Bay have said that they will stay remote. That's a range of between about a quarter and a third of the student body at each of the schools. A preliminary analysis of the socioeconomic and racial and ethnic composition of the remote students suggests that they are by and large representative of the overall student population at each of the schools, with some exceptions. We will continue to look carefully at this data as we look to see if our attendance improves as a result of this opportunity for students to return in person. As everyone knows, the cases among young Mainers are increasing, and so I ask all of our families and students to please continue to adhere to all of our safety protocols in school and outside. We can see the end of the tunnel, but the degree and the speed at which we get there depends on all of us continuing to be cautious and vigilant. I'd like to take a moment to shout out our central operations teams for their efforts to allow us to increase in-person instruction. In preparation for this work, our HR team has recruited, vetted, and hired almost 50 people in the past few weeks to allow us to be staffed up for the increased in-person time. Our facilities and maintenance team has procured and installed tents, purchased and delivered tables, desks, chairs, and tree stumps, and moved items in and out of schools into temporary storage arrangements. Our finance office has processed close to $1 million in reopening-related purchases to allow all of this to happen. Our data and technology team has procured, deployed, and trained on new technology to enable our high schools to provide effective instruction in our current context. Our communications team has been working overtime to continue to keep information flowing to families and staff with weekly communication updates, and has revamped our school reopening website and even added a new website dedicated to our spring reopening activities. Our food service team has been busy planning to double, I repeat that, double the number of meals provided daily with the same staff and with very minimal changes to our delivery system, as we will continue to have to individually package all of our breakfasts, snacks, and lunches. Our transportation department went through a full vetting of all of their routes, working with school staff to ensure that we would be able to provide safe transportation to all of our students, which in some cases requires running the routes that we established at the beginning of the year twice, so that we can keep the appropriate number of students on the bus. All of these folks need to be recognized for their tireless commitment, their skillfulness, and their willingness to figure things out. They join our amazing school-based staff who continue to plan and prepare so that they can welcome students back for more in-person instruction this spring. Could not be prouder or more thankful for the extraordinary Portland Public Schools people who are making these enormous changes midstream. On that note, I want to remind anyone watching at home that this Wednesday, we will not have any in-person or remote direct instruction for students in grades pre-K through 8. We also will not have in-person instruction on Thursday. All instruction will be remote. This will allow our staff to finalize arrangements in our schools to be ready for the increased number of students who start school on Monday, April 26th. On that note, I would also like to remind everyone that this coming Friday, there is no school for students as we start the April break. For those planning to travel, please adhere to our new travel guidance, which was included in our Friday staff and community newsletter and is also on our new spring reopening website. I would like to take a moment to report on the status of staff vaccinations. We've been running a survey. We now have 615 responses, so approximately 45% of our overall staff has responded to the survey. Of the respondents, 91% have had one dose or are fully vaccinated. So assuming that nobody else in the school district has actually, had vaccines, that would account for about 40% of our staff. And we obviously believe that that's not the case, that others that have not responded to the survey for a variety of reasons may also have done that. Another 4% will take the vaccine as soon as they can get an appointment. A small percentage, about 5% of respondents, are either not sure or do not plan to get the vaccine. Of those, a very small number, 10 altogether, said they had a medical reason or a religious objection. So overall, I think this says that our staff are taking advantage of the opportunity that the vaccination presents. As I said earlier, we remain concerned about the steady pace of COVID cases in the area. I want to be clear that we will continue to lead with evidence and are committed to keeping our students and staff safe. I cannot stress enough how important it is for everyone to continue to enforce and abide by our health and safety measures, including self-assessing, not coming to work if showing any symptoms, masking, and physical distancing. For those who are eligible in the community, our older students, parents, and staff, please take advantage of the opportunity to get vaccinated. Again, only by continuing our vigilance and commitment to keeping each other safe will we be able to return and keep our students learning in person this spring and into the next school year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Mr. Superintendent. Now we move to the report of the Secretary, consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of April 6, 2021. Is there a motion? Mr. Irish, seconded by someone? Ms. Bondo. Thank you, Ms. Bondo. Are there questions on the motion? Is there any public comment on the motion? So this is approving the minutes from our last meeting, April 6, 2021. All right, is there any board discussion? Okay, by roll call vote, please indicate whether you are in favor of approving the meeting minutes of from our meeting, last meeting, April 6, 2021. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Bondo?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Irish?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Russell-Better?
Yes.
Ms. Trevorrow? Mr. Youssef?
Yes.
Ms. Chung?
Yes.
Ms. Yangala,
Yes.
and Chair Figdor.
Yes. The motion passes unanimously with the students voting with the majority. Mr. Superintendent, I see that Lynn has joined us. Do we want to go back and do that recognition?
That would be great.
I will promote her to a panelist. All right.
Lynn, are you with us? Let's see you.
Yeah, my sincerest apologies because the link just didn't send to my email and my whole inbox was very filled. So
that's the life of a student in COVID days, is just check that email. Thank you for joining us. As I mentioned, I am very proud today to highlight the accomplishments of Lynn Wynn, a senior at Deering High School. Lynn is the first place Grand Award winner in the 2021 Maine State Science Fair. She came out on top among the nearly 160 students competing for prestigious state titles and more than $1 million in scholarships and awards. She won for, get this, her research on how carbon nanotubes could be used as an inexpensive remover of arsenic in drinking water systems. Amazing. As the state winner, Lynn will form part of the Maine delegation to the Regeneron International Science and Engineering Fair. This year, the Regeneron ISEF is virtual and will be held in May. Regeneron ISEF is a competition with significant financial and scholarship awards. In addition to winning the Maine State Fair First Place Grand Award, Lynn placed first in the Environmental Engineering Category Award, and as such, she was the recipient of the first Carrie James Water Ride Scholarship, a $5,000 scholarship that she can apply to the college of her choice. Shortly after that, but unrelated to it, Lynn was also named a Cook College Scholar, one of just 61 students nationwide to receive that prestigious honor, and the only one from Maine. The Jack Kent Cook College Scholars receive up to $40,000 annually for up to 4 years to attend the college or university of their choice, in addition to comprehensive advising and other program supports. We are so proud of this talented, hardworking student. In addition to her accomplishments as a scholar, she is an all-around student leader and a tremendous contributor to her school and our community. Among other things that Lynn has done recently, as she was one of the organizers of our community conversation on safety in our schools, and she was also a speaker at the vigil against Asian American and Pacific Islander hate. The credit goes to Lynn, but also goes to her support system, including her teachers, administrators, and all of the others who have supported her along the way. Lynn, we look forward to seeing all of the ways in which you will continue to achieve in the future and make the world a better place. And we would love to just hear a little bit of wisdom from you.
I just want to first thank you for your kind words. I think that means a lot to me. I guess I would give thanks to, again, just sort of the support system that I got from Deering High School. I mean, I know my teachers don't want me to accredit a lot of my successes to them, but honestly, without, them believing in me and them just supporting me along the way, I wouldn't be, where I am today. And I think, especially during times of COVID, I know it's so hard to be a teacher to because I think teachers love to interact with their students. They love, to, teach. And, a lot of my teachers are the type of teachers who would show up to early mornings to tutor students and stay after school, even after very long hours to help other students. And these are the types of teachers that, are really our heroes during times of COVID and times of certainty. And I think that even, through these times, they were still able to support me. I did a lot of my science work at, during high school, because, my teachers wanted me to like have a, safe place to do some of my experiments. And, if I had like an inquiry or like a question after class, they're willing to like stay after class to, talk to me about like the randomest science questions. And I think it's these people that, make me want to continue what I want to do and like believe in myself, even during times of uncertainty. And I want to give thanks to them, specifically to a few teachers, including Ian McLean, Kyle Davenport, Karen Scheibels, and Brian Dodge. I would like to thank, and also Helen Bright, for all of their support along my 4 years. And I know that, I'm doing this for them, I'm doing this for myself, and I'm doing this hopefully, for people in the future who, to bridge sort of the equity gap when it comes to, having clean water and having, resources. I really want to use science as a way to bridge these gaps that we see today. And, without them sort of supporting my side, I don't think I'll be here. And so I just give my gratitude to them. And just thank you for this board for honoring me today. Thank you.
Lynn, you're such an inspiration. Thank you so much. I see Mr. Rodriguez has his hand up. Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lynn, I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity, or rather not let the opportunity go by, and congratulate you outspokenly, not just in the chat here in our Zoom meeting. And I if you don't mind, that I want to share that you and I had an opportunity to talk a few months ago. You reached out to me with some very insightful questions, and I really appreciated the time that you spent talking with me and sharing your experiences as a student in our school. So I wanted to highlight that. And lastly, I wanted to say, and your remarks a moment ago speak so highly of yourself, right? Like that, how insightful you are of what goes into the success of a student, right? What contributes to your success, and that speaks so highly of you. So I wanted to add one last thing. All of these acknowledgments, all these awards, what they do, what you have done, you make Portland Public Schools better. So I wanted to thank you for that. And again, congratulate you for all of your achievements. We look forward to following you along your career, because we expect you to continue to achieve great things and benefit your community as you grow. So thank you again.
Lynn, congratulations. We're so proud of you. And I think Mr. Rodriguez spoke really there on behalf of the full board. Congratulations. And thank you so much for making the time to join us tonight and for sharing your perspectives after such a big week.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we are now on to consent items. Will the superintendent speak to this item?
Yes, Madam Chair. Under Board Policy KCD, the school board accepts by unanimous consent contributions made to the school district of durable goods, goods of significant, and I'm looking at my notes and I don't think we have anything, do we, Anne?
We have just one. Books.
Oh, I'm sorry, I see it. Yep, it was so tiny. The school board accepts by unanimous consent contributions made to the school district of durable goods of significant value and of symbolic importance, and is required by policy. All of the donations are listed in the board memo by name and donation accompanying this item. Our practice is that each donor receives a written contribution acknowledgement expressing our heartfelt gratitude and for their tax purposes. So I would like to thank our contributor this week that has made donations of durable goods, substantial value, and historical or commemorative significance. And that is books, bags, and blankets for kindergarten outdoor learning and books for fourth graders, a total value of $600 from Derek, Cindy, and Sierra Sol. And we're very grateful to the Sols for their support of our work.
Thank you so much, Mr. Superintendent. Now we are on to old business, consideration and action to adopt the FY22 budget in the amount of $125,800,000 $815,760. Is there a motion? Mr. Burke, seconded by Ms. Bondo. Mr. Superintendent, will you please speak to this motion?
Yes. We're going to be presenting on it, but before we do, I just want to thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board and community, as we present our updated FY22 proposed budget. The budget proposal embodies the critical work that we've set out to do as a district. In 2017, when the board adopted the Portland Promise, it bought into a vision for improving opportunities and outcomes for all students. It committed us as a district to repaying longstanding educational debts that have accrued to students of colors, students with disabilities, and students who have less resources. Students and some who have been at the margins looking in. That's what the board committed to, and I believe that this proposed budget embodies what it looks like to make good on that Portland Promise. It is in this spirit that this budget has been reviewed and unanimously approved by the board's Finance Committee, and I'm incredibly grateful for the Finance Committee's support and recognition that this budget is the result of ongoing work that we have done together as a staff and board to reach this point. So for today's presentation, we'll start by walking through some of the, we were supposed to start with my comments. So we're going to jump through some of the first slides, and then I will turn it over to Director of Budget and Finance, Kathy Winchenbach, to walk through the financial specifics, including changes that have taken place as a result of favorable forecasts for our health insurance increases and our revenue increases. Kathy, do you have the presentation to queue up?
I do. I'm not sure I'm able to share.
I think so.
You think I am? Advancing sharing options, only host.
You're clicking on the arrow next to it. Click on the middle part of that link.
There we go. I'm sorry, Greg. Thank you so much.
Do you want to move ahead, Kathy? Keep going.
Okay. How far ahead to the financial piece, or
just short of that? About the goals of the budget. Go on. Yeah, there we go. Just back one, please.
There we go.
So again, our budget is attempting to focus on these three themes: advancing equity in our schools, also integrating innovations from COVID, and rebuilding the academic and social emotional foundations post-COVID. And I want to give a shout out to our board member, Emily Chun, who helped us to frame our original ideas about this particular theme around this notion of rebuilding foundations as opposed to accelerating learning or recovering learning. So Emily, thank you very much for your incredible thoughtfulness, and I hope that you can see that it's actually reflected in the way that we are talking about the budget. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy, who's done a terrific job throughout this budget process, but in this last week in particular, as some of these favorable forecasts came in, a lot of changes had to be made to the budget, and there is a new budget book in the board packet that includes and reflects all of these changes, and Kathy's going to walk through some of that with us now. You're muted, Kathy.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, Superintendent. Okay. So I'm going to primarily concentrate on the changes for tonight. So this on the FY22 Superintendent and the Finance Committee proposed budgets, we were at 125.8 million in our FY22 budget before the last reductions that related to a change in our health insurance benefit estimate and our additional state allocation for CTE, our career and technical education. So this is the before, and this is the after. Our proposed budget has changed to 125.2 million, and this compares to 119.9 from last year, and our increase from last year is now 4.4% compared to 2.1 from last year. And our tax rate increase is actually 5.51% instead of the 2.9, and it was 0 last year. So we'll go into a little bit more detail of which areas these changes affect. So the expenditure budget decreased due to change in the estimated amount of the employer-paid health insurance. So we had budgeted a worst case of 6%, of a 6% increase, and we were just notified by Anthem that our rates would be remaining the same for FY22 as FY21. And so therefore we had a 0% increase. So these changes reflect that. And it was in the amount of $661,060, the impact in the health insurance. So this is the impact to our expenditure side. And our baseline expenditure budget with investments included decreased from 125.8 million to the 125.2 million. And then on the revenue budget side, on April 5th, our CTE allocation from the state increased by $89,561.86, so almost $90,000. And this resulted in an increase from about 3.2 million to 3.3 million. And this change impacts the amount of our property tax that needs to be raised. It's basically a redistribution or a shifting of funding sources from property taxes to non-tax revenue, where the state subsidy amount resides. So the end result is that our property tax revenue was reduced by about approximately $751,000, the $661,000 on the expenditure reduction, and the $90,000 that was an increase in our revenue. Any questions on this? Okay. So then we revised what our baseline would have looked like if we had incorporated or had not incorporated an increase in our estimate for health insurance. And we would have resulted in a property tax rate of 2.48% and a 2% increase on the baseline, just for the baseline side from the prior year. And then when we add our investments in, which is what we are presenting today, our increase is 4.4% with our $2.9 million of investment. And our tax rate impact is 5.51%. So I think initially we had a $12.43 tax rate for the school, and now we're down to $12.33. So this slide primarily is showing that the impact is to our property tax levy and to our state EPS subsidy and our benefit amount. And this reduced our revenue in our expenditure sides by the $661,000, where the property tax levy went down $751,000 and the state subsidy went up $90,000. So the net effect is $661 on the revenue side, and the net effect here with the benefits was $661. And that's how we get to the $125,154,700. And this shows another view of what the property tax levy looks like, the increase, the tax rate, the change in percentage and amount. And the same would hold true with the increase in property tax valuation alone increases revenue by about $1 million with no increase in the tax rate. And we also said that with each percentage increase in the tax rate, it yields approximately $953,000 in property tax revenue, and that represents about a 12-cent tax rate increase. So we went down $750,000 approximately and 10 cents. And then our little house slide shows that in the same information, just in a little different graphic with our average home price. So we said that this says the superintendent's proposed, it should say that the school board recommended budget adds 64 cents to the school portion of the tax rate for a total tax rate, school tax rate of $12.33. And we use our example. We know we have are expecting a revaluation, but for a home valued at $250,000 in the example we've been using, this represents an annual increase in property taxes of about $161. And I think we said 184 prior to that. Oops. And then our revenue sources basically stay the same. It didn't have a significant impact. I just went out another percentage increase on here, but we're roughly at 80% for our property taxes, 14% on our EPS funding, and then all other revenue sources would be 5.4%. And there's not much change from the earlier presentations that we've given. And this is another view, which may be the same information I think we might have presented earlier. I think it breaks it down a little bit more with all the other revenue sources here. But our tax levy, this is our adjusted tax levy, our state subsidy, and then our other sources of revenue coming down to the $125,154,700 adjusted budget, which now we're at 4.4%. Okay, so I guess I've got it twice. So this was highlighting the impact on the revenue side is basically our property tax levy and our state EPS subsidy.
This is a revenue only slide. I think the other one was revenue and expenditures combined, Kathy.
These are both. I think these are, okay. You know what, I'm flipping, but I don't see that it's moving. So I think that's me. Yeah, I think that's me. For some reason, it's going a little bit differently. Okay, and then this is the expenditure side. So the expenditure categories, again, haven't changed that significantly. We're still around 79% for our salaries and benefits. And then we've broken it down by contracted services, debt service, and supplies and other expenses. And the same with our salary and benefit expenditures, how that's broken down. I think initially we had 76% were expenses compared to 24% for our benefits. And now we're at 77% of salaries with 23% of benefits. So it just changed just slightly because our benefits went down. So this is very similar to what we had presented previously. And then this is our expenditure budget broken down by category. And the benefit number here really is the only piece that was impacted on this particular slide to get us down to, again, to the 125, 154, 700. And we had a slide that was showing, which we will have, we'll see that our next slide, of explaining what the 781,000 breakdown in the other categories represented. Yeah, see, I guess maybe it's me. I'm pressing. This comes up and I'm thinking I'm seeing a second slide, but it's not a second slide. I guess this is just kind of fading in. So this is the only impact to this particular, any change on this particular slide. And then this slide is just showing where the majority of our changes occurred. We had the large change in the debt service. This has not changed. This is the where our non-salary expense drivers fall, and that has not changed since our last presentation. And I believe that's our last slide on the finance piece.
I believe you're right. And so we'll talk now about the investments that are in the proposed budget. Again, just
I see that Mr. Rodriguez has his hand up. Mr. Rodriguez, do you have a question that you want to ask now, or can you hold it?
I'll put it in the chat. It's from one of the first slides.
I think you could go ahead then.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just what I didn't write it down, and I think the slides in the board docs are not updated. What was the rollover or the baseline rollover tax increase?
It would have been 2.48.
And then I'm sorry, excuse me.
Go ahead. No, go right ahead.
I'm sorry. So then the investments, do we have a number for the investments tax increase separated? I know we saw the total of the baseline plus the investments. I guess I could just do the math, right? So subtract that.
That's okay. No, it's right. Yeah.
Sorry. Good.
It was like I think about a $20,000 impact to the investment specifically for the benefit decrease.
Good stuff. All right. That's all I wanted to write that down. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Okay, Superintendent, please go ahead.
Great. So again, the themes in our budget are advancing equity, integrating some of the innovations from our COVID experience, and then rebuilding our academic and social emotional foundations post-COVID. Can you go on to the next slide, Kathy? And then one more. Thanks. So just as this I think would have answered board members.
Sorry.
The actual change in the budget from what was approved by the Finance Committee last week and what we're bringing you today with respect to the actual investment. So you can see it's a relatively minor decrease, and it's all accounted to the changes in the health benefits. So let's talk a little bit about what is in our budget for advancing equity. If you can advance a couple slides, Kathy. So the way that this is organized, and this is something that you saw when we did the original presentation, is what's in italics are generally things that are also being offset with federal funds. So as you look at, as I walk through these, the things that are, in sort of regular print is what's in the budget, and then the italics is something that it's shared with the in our federal funds. So first is to continue the pre-K promise by increasing seats and reducing barriers, and specifically providing transportation to all of our students is the way that we are approaching the reduction of barriers. There are still before care and after care issues that we will continue to work towards, but that's the barrier that we're able to remove through the elements of this budget. We're also implementing important portions of our BLAU plan to support students who are English language learners. We're continuing to prioritize investing in core instruction for equity and rigor, specifically around Africana and Wabanaki studies, continuation of our math and literacy equity work, the implementation of our STEM plan, and the work towards developing a formative assessment program for the district. We're also investing in the diversity and inclusion of our staff. So things like compensating for identity-based work, recruiting and supporting our BIPOC educators, and developing career pathways for our staff are among the investments that are included in the budget. Next slide. We are formalizing support for the structure that we've built to recognize and address harassment, sexual harassment, and discrimination. So that's consistent with the establishment of the board's new sexual harassment and discrimination policy, and also making some critical and necessary investments to support students with disabilities, specifically completing our autism, our continuum for students who are on the autism spectrum, and also establishing a functional life skills program with increased staffing to account for increased caseloads, and that's specifically at Deering High School. And then supporting and institutionalizing the district's equity work, and so specifically that is the contract, shifting the contract for our diversity, equity, and inclusion director from grants to the general fund. So in sum, this is the portion of the budget that is dedicated to that theme of advancing equity, and specifically what the amounts are for each of those particular things that are in the budget that we're asking you to approve today. There are, as you saw with the italics, some things that are being funded in our ESSERF 2 grant, and so we will talk about those shortly, but that's what's in this actual budget that you're approving today. Moving on to the integration of innovations. Sorry, Kathy, I'm a little bit ahead of you on that. Here we go. So the things that are in the budget are expanding and institutionalizing outdoor learning, supporting the integration of new technology-based modalities and structures, continuing our in-school substitute structure, retaining some level of remote academy access for students who require that, and moving to a remote central office operation. And again, the italicized numbers or letters represent things that are in the federal budget that we will be discussing shortly. So next slide, Kathy. Thanks. This is the actual amount that is devoted to integrating innovations in our general fund budget. And last but not least is rebuilding foundations. And here we're focusing on creating the support structures that allow us to reconnect students to learning and to community. And so that includes making investments in physical and mental health, nursing and social work specifically, and a significant investment in summer opportunities of different kinds, both district programs, school-based programs, and programs that leverage our community supports. And so next slide. What's in the actual general fund budget is this $273,000, which is for increased nursing and social work. And the next slide shows you specifically where those additions are slated to happen. And then next slide, this summarizes again what you saw at the beginning. So how much for advancing equity, how much for integrating innovations from COVID, and also how much to rebuild our foundations. I'll pause there before moving into the federal funding in case there are any questions.
I see Ms. Bondo. Ms. Bondo, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Superintendent, thank you so much for that presentation. On the rebuilding foundations, then I see that on the social worker, can we go back? I just want to make sure, because I didn't see a need of multilingual, because I know is needed on the multilingual. Did we add anything on that, or?
We did not at this point. That was something that we had originally intended to include in the budget, and we will now need to revisit when we look at the allocation of the new federal funding.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other questions from the board? Thank you, Ms. Bondo. Okay, Mr. Superintendent.
Okay. Kathy, do you want to move on to leveraging federal funds? Thanks. So, as you know, we've received a substantial infusion of federal funds this year, which have been amazing, and without which we would not have been able to run school the way that we have been able to run school. And so we wanted to just give you a little bit of a bird's eye view in terms of the existing federal funding that we currently have. And then we're also going to talk briefly about the funding that we expect to receive. So the funding that we currently have, our ESSER 1, which you remember, those who were on the board last year, was at the time called the CARES grant. That funding was used, about 2/3 of it was used to support the funding of about 20 custodian positions. It was one of the ways in which we reduced our obligations for general fund last year, and we were able to keep the budget increase at a low enough number that it did not require any increase in taxes. So those 20 positions continue into this year, and so the remainder of that ESSER 1 grant is going towards that purpose in FY22. And that zeroes out that budget altogether. So that grant will be fully spent. The ESSER 2, this is the funding that we received shortly before the start of the new calendar year, was roughly $8 million. Of that, we're devoting about $2 million of that to continue the custodians in our federal funding. So completing the 1.3 million for this year and setting aside 1.3 million for next year to be able to continue to support our custodians that way. And then in addition to that, and this is what we're going to delve into a little bit more closely, we have about $6 million that we are using to advance different investments or offset other expenses that would have been in our general fund budget. So what we're showing you with this is that that's how we're accounting for these two first rounds of ESSERF. And again, as we mentioned previously, we will have another round of ESSERF coming soon. So in the next slide, we show you what that almost $6 million is going towards. So a significant portion of that, about $1 million, is going towards advancing equity in Portland Public Schools, so aligned with that budget theme. And that is supporting a significant number of curriculum efforts, some special ed program support, particularly around tuition and things like that, some costs associated with LAO implementation, and some of the recruitment efforts associated with our acceleration of staff diversity and inclusion. This area, as I've been talking about these, I've been referring to these as mostly one-time expenditures. I think it's important, and I know Malia would want me to point out that particularly those curriculum supports, about $500,000 in that category, are things that we do not envision as one-time costs. Some of them may be two-time costs, so being able to do something for a couple of years to be able to create capacity, but by and large, those are things that we need to figure out how to sustain, and they're part of a larger curriculum plan, all of which is not currently funded in general fund or in our federal funding. So there are things that we have not advanced this year that we will still need to come back to in subsequent years. And there's been significant work on the part of our academic team and conversations with the curriculum committee about exactly what that plan looks like. So that is work that's fully staked out that needs to happen. So when I say that this is mostly one-time expenditures, that's the big exception to what is the one-time expenditures in here. The summer school obviously is not a one-time expenditure. We want to be able to do that for a couple of years. And so we're required by law to spend at least 20% of the new ESSER funding, the $18 million on that. So, we're making a down payment towards that with this investment here. And then we would expect to do that in subsequent years as well. We have moved the hazard pay that's tied to the minimum wage ordinance. We've moved that from general fund to this category. This is one category that if we were no longer in the under the emergency declaration, this would not need to be paid out. And so, potentially this would not be the full amount once the emergency declaration is reversed. And then we have set aside about $1 million from the ESSER 2 grant to be able to support our spring on-site reopening. So if you recall during my introduction to the reopening plan, I talked about the fact that we've hired 45 new staff people to help us finish out the year. That's coming out of this $1 million. All of the investments in tents that you see all over our schools, the furniture that is being brought in to allow us to appropriately distance students, all of the technology that our high school teachers have and are using to be able to teach students under the present conditions, all of those things are part of that $1 million for spring on-site reopening. And then in terms of the integration of the innovations from COVID, you see the dedicated subs. We've talked a little bit about this before. We piloted that this year with our using our CRF funding, where we had dedicated subs at each of our buildings. We believe that that's something that has proven to be really effective in many different ways. And so this estimate here is the difference between keeping those positions as dedicated subs versus what we would expect to spend on subs that just were called in for the day. That's the difference, and we're trying to true that up over the course of the year. We have made some continued investments in our communications to support our communications coordinator time, and also for the development of our new website. We have a significant set of investments in our technology infrastructure that are scoped out and that we expect to fund out of this. And we are also in the process of reconfiguring how we provide centralized support, which includes in time being in a position to sell the building that we currently have. And so what we've done is we've accounted for the equivalent of what that of what our debt service payments are on this building. We've accounted for that. We'll do staffing on federal grants, and then when this building rolls off, that will no longer be an expense, and that's why we talk about it as a one-time or two-time only expense. And so that accounts fully for the $6 million that we have remaining in our current ESSERF. And then next slide, Kathy, just quickly to touch base on this. We talked a little bit about this at the budget hearing the other day. We expect to receive $18 million. Those funds can be used through the summer of 2024. And as I mentioned earlier, a significant portion of that needs to be used for what the federal grants call learning loss. What we're thinking about is rebuilding our foundations. And, so we estimate that it could be up to $7.5 million over those 3 years. We are also needing to make sure that we have the funds that we need to support reopening of schools in the fall. So that could include, continuing many of the staff that we've hired towards, the end of the year, the expenses related to keeping a remote academy of some sort. All of those investments are things that we would envision making out of that $18 million in federal funds. So depending on how we open school and what our needs are, that's where we need to be able to have the flexibility, which we have with that amount of money to be able to meet the need. And then when we have a better sense of what that remainder is, we would, I've proposed, and we can have a longer conversation, subsequently, this notion of creating a participatory budgeting process that would allow our students, our staff, members of the community to design and propose sustainable investments that are aligned to the Portland Promise that would allow us to really advance what we're trying to do around the four goals of the Portland Promise and, take advantage of this potentially once in a lifetime opportunity for us to really advance things like creating science labs that are 21st century, making sure that all of our technology is fully where it needs to be and people have the ability to use it. Other amazing innovations like that we could look for. So that's it in terms of what we're proposing. Kathy, if you can move to the next slide, just so that we can recap. Or maybe, do you want to take questions and then we can just touch on where we are in the process and we can go from there?
That sounds good. Ms. Trevaro.
I'm not sure if this is the right time or not, but I did want to offer an amendment. So you can let me know if that's the appropriate time or not.
I think now is a fine time.
Okay, so I just wanted to offer an amendment to adopt the FY22 budget in the amount of $125,154,700, just to get it in line with the presentation tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Trevaro. Is there a second? Mr. Rodriguez? All right, are there any? So I think what we should do now, since the questions that I see, the hands I see up are going to be questions on the amendment, since the amendment is just updating the numbers in the budget given the new information, that we right now would go to questions on the amendment, and we can go ahead and take any and all questions that the board has on the budget. Does that sound good? Okay, excellent. So I see Ms. Chung has her hand up. Go ahead, Ms. Chung.
Just to clarify, we're allowed to ask a question not related to Ms. Trevaro's amendment?
So Mr. Rao's amendment is just updating the total budget figure that we are going to pass today, given the new information about both state funding and our health insurance premium. So whatever, you can ask any question you have now regarding the budget.
Okay, so this is kind of quick, but I was wondering how the district plans on, I guess, promoting or sharing the findings about this budget to students. Because I was just realizing that I was having a conversation with some people in my school senate about the budget and how people felt really disconnected from it. And I understand that, like, as my job as student rep, I'm supposed to relay information about what's happening on the school board to our student population. But I was wondering if it was also going to be done on a more broad scale district level, because I feel like students often feel upset about feeling like nothing's really changing. And then with this plan, we see that the district is working very, very hard to improve the situation with inequity in our schools. I feel like it is something important to share with students. Thank you.
I guess I would turn that around to you, Emily, and just ask for you and the other student board members' assistance to work with Dr. Valenzuela and her team to figure out ways to communicate this effectively with our students. I hear your point, and I think it makes a ton of sense, and I think it's always challenging for us old folks to know how to communicate with you young folks. I don't know, I guess I could text everybody, but other than that, I really don't know what to do. So, but I'm sure you have great ideas, and working with Dr. Valenzuela, you can help us do that.
Yeah, that sounds good. We can try writing letters to everyone. I think that'll help.
Thank you, Ms. Chung. Ms. Banjo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just need to get two small clarification questions, Superintendent. I think, if we go back to the slide on the federal budget earmarked, just need to get some clarification there on yes, thank you. On the advanced equity in PPS, I know this is one-time expenditures than we're doing here. I just want to get a clarification because I heard it seems like because this is a critical piece of what we're investing for years. So I just want to make sure on the special ed. So beside on the curriculum support, then we may need to bring it back in a couple of years back to the general budget. Everything else, those are three other ones can be one-time expenditure, or we need to make sure that we can sustain that for some years to come.
I'm a little wobbly on the special ed program supports. I remember tuition was part of it. I don't remember what else was in there. The LAU plan implementation is software and the cost of sending people to get their credentials as ELL teachers. So for our coaches and others to go and do that. So that's basically tuition money. And then the accelerating staff diversity and inclusion is to pay for recruitment, I believe. But Malia or Afi, if anybody can help to just be sure what is in the special ed program support.
Yeah, I can look up right now the more specific details, but in general, it's related to the tuition costs associated with the increase in the age of from 20 to 22 at the state level. So the department actually did a lot of reallocation from other lines in order to account for some of that. And this is the remaining amount that we had to consider as an increase. Okay. So it would be likely, Ms. Bondo, I believe, that cost would continue, but I can confirm and get more detail on that for you.
Okay, great. Please. Thank you so much. And the other one is on rebuilding foundation. I see we have some 136,000 removed from the local. Can I just get a little bit of sense what really is about, or because this is going to be one time, or we have to keep on taking out from there because that's a federal funding then we need to use just for one-time expenditure. So I just need to understand what's that piece of detail then we are removing from the local, please.
So we're removing the totality of what our general fund budget previously included for summer school. And we are doing that because we're making such a large investment of federal funding. And so it's basically just allowing us to take that off of the out of the general fund budget. And, you know, for the next 3 years, we believe that we're set. At some point, if we want to ever have summer school after these 3 years, we will need to, you know, either bring back that amount or increase that amount to keep up with the level of programming that we will have established over the past few years. So I think that that's the idea there. I think that we will understand what the value is of this level of an investment. I don't think from our perspective that we were ever resourced to be able to do the level of summer support that we felt we would have wanted to do. We just were doing what we had the funding to do.
Okay, so that means for all the summer school programs, so I think we building, I think maybe later on, we will know, we're going to have more deeper sense about what's going to look like and what kind of investment activity is going to happen and what's the value are we bringing under there, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Okay, perfect.
And I've got the special ed if you wanted the details. Yes. It's in the budget book addendum, but 8,400 of that is new batteries for the automated external defibrillators. 152,000 is for academics. 90,000 of that is tuition to increase the tuition for out of district placement of students, and then 50,000 is for programming for students who are now eligible until age 22, and 51,000 for additional extended school year funds to extend the program for students. So that's additional summer school.
All right, great. Okay.
Funding.
All right. Thank you so much for the clarification. Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bondo. And just a reminder to all board members that the updated budget book includes an addendum that walks through a narrative for each of these investments. So you can see more of the details in written form if that is helpful to you. And then also, I believe at our first meeting in May, which is our next meeting in May 4th, we'll be doing a board focus on the initial plan for summer school.
Yeah.
Okay, are there other questions from the board? Okay, seeing no hands, I'm going to move to public comment. And I know there are 2 hands up, and they've been up for a long time. So thank you so much for your patience with us. I'm going to review the public comment procedure, and then I'll go to those first 2 hands that have been up for a long time, and then anyone else who wants to address the board. But if you want to address the board, please use the raise your hand feature provided by Zoom. This feature is either found on the webinar control bar at the bottom of your screen or can be found by selecting your name on the participant screen. When I call on you, I'll use your Zoom name, and please start by stating your name and address, and then you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Should you near the 3-minute mark, I will see if additional time is needed. An additional 3 minutes may be granted by board consent. If the additional time is granted and the speaker reaches 6 minutes, please know that your mic will be muted. And I'll just say that perhaps the board will need to consider this, but for our members of the public who are using interpreters, my rule of thumb has been to double it, since the interpreters are restating what the member of the community is saying. So I've been using 6 minutes as the initial period before I check in to see if more time is needed. And we can circle back at a later time and talk through that as a board if other board members want to do that. So I'm going to first go to Ornella Ziza. Go ahead, you have 3 minutes to, let's see, let me unmute you. And you have 3 minutes to address the board. And I believe that you're going to use an interpreter. Would Mr. Superintendent or Kathy, would you mind stopping the sharing of your screen so we can see people? Thank you so much. Okay. Ornella, you can go ahead. And I believe Josephine is here to interpret.
My English is no better. I need the interpreter, please.
Je suis ici.
Oh, très bien. Nakurikiye ikiganiro.
I follow the presentation.
Vyukuri jewe novuga ko bikenewe cyane gose.
Truly speaking, this budget is really needed.
Kubera jewe nari mfise umwana kuva yashitse ngaha tuhamaze imyaka 7 n'igice.
I moved to United States 7.5 years ago.
Umwana wanje nta congereza yarazi kuvuga igifaransa n'ikirundi.
My child didn't speak English. She spoke only French and Kirundi.
Ariko uyu munsi ashobora kuvuga neza cyane mu congereza, nibaza na conference de presse yoyigira. Rero byavuye ku kwitanga kwanyu.
Yes, right now she can speak English well, that she can even hold a press conference. And it's really due to your support that she's where she is right now.
Rero ndibaza nk'abavyeyi bose bari muri Portland bafise abana bari muri aya mashure ari muri Portland, nukuri barakeneye imfashanyo yanyu.
Yes, as one of the parents, and I think all the parents who have their children in Poland public schools, they really need your support.
Nukuri mwoba mukoze habayeho kubashigikira bagashishikara bagafasha.
Yes, it will be grateful.
Nanone ndibaza ko byoshishikara bikagira akamaro mushishikaye kubashigikira cyane gose.
Yes, it will be very important, and if you continue supporting our students.
Nukuri muzoba mukoze.
Yes, it will be a great work.
Iyo ni point of view yanje, ariko nibaza n'abandi bavyeyi bose ko biyumvira gutyo.
Yeah, this is my point of view, and I think other parents think the same way.
Multilingual irakora ibintu byinshi bikomeye, irakwiye gushigikirwa.
Yes, the multilingual office does a lot of things, and they need your support.
Murakoze.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Merci beaucoup pour cette journée à nous ce soir.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are going to move to Judical. And you can go ahead.
Judical, est-ce que tu peux parler? Maybe she left.
It looks like she's still there.
Yeah. Allô, Judikaël, est-ce que tu peux parler?
Okay, we can come back to her for sure. I'm just gonna try and mute her for a moment. Okay, are there other members of the public who would like to comment on the budget? Okay, I see Claire Woodman. Claire, you have 3 minutes to address the board. You can go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. First, thank you for having me speak. And I want to thank the superintendent and his team, along with the assistant superintendents, for all the work that's gone into the budget so far this year, and particularly the priority of advancing equity. And along those lines, I just want to offer support for the middle school beach program, speak to the importance of that as someone that works in the Breathe Day treatment program and in the middle school for the last 3 years specifically, and recognizing the real need for this type of programming for students that are on the spectrum. And so it's wonderful to see that in the budget, and I really encourage the board to continue to support that. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you for all you do and for joining us tonight. All right, are there other members of the public who would like to address the board? This is public comment on the budget. We'll give you one more chance because we're gonna vote on this amendment, and then we'll come back for public comment one more time on the main motion.
Madam Chair, I don't think that we need that amendment. The actual amount that is listed on the board action for tonight reflects the actual amount. I think that the first read amount was different, but the one that is actually there is, so I think you can go ahead and just move forward with the original action.
I did see that in on the agenda, but since on first read, it was the 125.8 figure. I do think we have to come back and change the underlying figure. So I know we updated, we went ahead and just updated it in the agenda, but I do think we need to, since we brought something different on first read, I do think we need to go through the process of updating that. Is that all right, Mr. Superintendent?
Oh, absolutely, that's fine, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I see one more hand among members of the public, and I see Stephen Scharf. So Stephen, go ahead, you have 3 minutes to address the board.
Now, can you hear me? Stephen Sharp for Brackett Street in Portland. First, I would agree with the chair for once that you do need to bring forward this amendment because the first read had the original amounts, and it's actually the Finance Committee's budget that was presented to the board, and so that does need to be amended to become the board's budget. So you are operating properly there. And just in terms of the budget, I will restate my opinion that the budget still is much too high, and you need to bring it down to reality of what the taxpayers are going to be able to afford in the city of Portland. And we'd encourage you to work on that tonight before you bring it to the city for its approval. And that's all I have to say there. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for joining us tonight. All right, any other members of the public who would like to address the board? Okay, seeing no other hands, I'm going to close public comment and move into board debate. So this is board debate on Mr. Varro's amendment to update the total figure of the budget, which is $125.2 million. Mr. Varro.
Thank you, Chair. I just, I guess I'll kind of comment on both, and I won't comment when we get to the main motion, but I just wanted to state my support for this budget and to thank the superintendent and staff for putting it together. You know, personally, I feel like given the sort of global trauma that we have faced in the last year, it has never been more clear to me that we need the type of policies that are in our Portland Promise to go into effect, not just in Portland Public Schools, but at levels from municipal to our nation. And I commend our staff for setting out a vision that will make strides on equity. And this budget is the manifestation of putting resources behind policies that we know to get at the root of that work. So I thank you for this budget and the work that you've done, and I support it 100%, and I'm looking forward to voting in favor tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trevorrow, and thank you for stewarding this budget forward as chair of the Finance Committee. Is there any other board discussion on the amendment? Okay, seeing no other hands, by roll call vote, please indicate if you are in favor of amending the main motion with the amendment. Ms. Trevorrow, do you want to repeat how you phrased the amendment?
Sure, I just need to look back at my note here. To adopt the FY22 budget in the amount of $125,154,700.
Thank you. So again, all in favor, please indicate by roll call vote. And Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Try to sneak it in between sneezes. Ms. Bondo?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Irish?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Russell-Better?
Yes.
Ms. Trevorrow?
Yes.
Mr. Youssef?
Yes.
Ms. Chung?
Yes.
Ms. Yangala? And Chair Figdor?
Yes. So the amendment passes unanimously with our student board rep, Ms. Chung, voting in the affirmative. We have now amended the main motion. So we're back to the now amended main motion, which is to approve the FY22 budget in the amount of $125,154,700. And before we go on, I want to just let the board know and others know that Ms. Yangala had to leave us maybe about half an hour ago. I'm sorry I didn't mention it earlier, but she had a family emergency, so she very much apologizes for having to leave, but that's why she's no longer with us. Okay, so now we are back to questions on the motion. So again, this is if this is another opportunity to ask questions about the budget. And we'll start with the board, and then we'll go back to public comment, and then we will have our final board discussion and take a final vote. So that's just the process so everyone's clear on how that will occur. So are there any other questions on the budget? Okay, I don't see any other questions from the board, so we'll move back to public comment. Are there any other members of the public who would like to address the board about the budget? If so, use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. I'm going to try Judica L one more time. And if you're there and would like to address the board, you can go ahead. You're unmuted and you have 6 minutes to address the board. Okay, I think she's no longer there, and I apologize. I think her understanding was we were talking about the budget at the top of the meeting, so I apologize for that. Are there any other members of the public who would like to address the board, specifically to comment on the budget? Okay, seeing no other hands, I'm going to close public comment and move into board discussion. So this is final board discussion on the FY22 budget. Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in a few moments, I'm going to support passing this budget. And I wanted to say that, I find this is my 5th budget. I've mentioned that a couple of times through this process. This is the 5th budget that I have an opportunity, a privilege really, to vote for in advance. And I think that this budget is very different than the other 4. I think that this budget fundamentally changes what we're doing as a school district. I think that this budget, let me plant a flag on that real quick, and I want to acknowledge earlier tonight in our public comments, we had, and I don't mean to single anyone out, but we had a member of the public reflect on actions that the district has taken recently and acknowledge that her advocacy up until this point was, Ms. Brennan had been advocating for us to return students, and today she thanked us for the work that the district has done. And as we've done all along, we thank her for her advocacy. We've always known that it has come from a sincere interest into what's best for our students. And so I want to then, in following along, I want to thank the district for acknowledging what I've been asking for the last 5 years for us to do as a school district and to put in a budget. And more specifically, what this process has felt like. It really has felt like there is a real buy-in into what we're doing. Like there's a real sincere understanding of what we're trying to achieve and what we mean when we say that we're advancing equity. As you know, we're working on forming this policy, our equity policy, so we can define it. And the purpose of that is so that the community can have that same fundamental understanding of what equity is. But the board should have no doubt that we do understand what it is. And this budget certainly includes our understanding of that. In short, what I wanted to say was that certainly this budget represents what I've been advocating for, and the process represents what I've been advocating for us to experience. I've often said that we don't hear from students and families who don't speak English in our board meetings. That's been one of my go-to quote-unquote reminders to board members when we hear from the public You saw that video from the Magna Awards, how the one quote that they signaled out for me was the number of languages that are spoken in our school district. And so to finally hear through this budget process, our interpreters working overtime and doing an amazing job at helping our families communicate with the board, that was a huge kind of moment for me to finally see something that I've been asking for us to have. And I know that the board took notice, because a lot of you were acknowledging with a great job on multilingual center on having the interpreters here tonight, and what a difficult moment it is to do their job here in front of everyone, right? They're not doing it in the privacy of someone's workplace. They're doing it here in front of however many people are watching us, and certainly the district leadership. And so kudos to them for doing that. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And I'll try not to ramble on any longer, but I again just want to acknowledge that this budget, to me personally, represents what I've been asking for us to do as a school district. And so I'm incredibly proud to be here for it. And in a few moments, we'll enthusiastically vote to support it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rodriguez. Ms. Bondo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have no question, but I have comments. And this is exactly what the diversity of expertise and background and thinking, bringing some different perspective of us investing on the equity lens. So when I see we had a lean representing that change, that diversity in our school district and going to the high achievement. So that means this is exactly what the law plan is really meant a lot to me. And I think she says something so powerful. Then she had the teachers who believe in her. She had the teachers who supporting her. So that means now with the law plan investment, we're going to support teachers. So that means having those students with English deficiency or really needs to be boosted, to be bringing to that level of knowledge of the language so they can reach those high achievement, then we are able to give to them. So this is about what we're talking about, equity. So I think in everything, it takes a leadership. And I want to say thank you to the superintendent and the amazing team to really working under those critical periods, but to look at under the equity lens, what we need now under the pandemic and COVID, when we can see from the pre-K going to the outdoor, when all students can have different tools to be able to learn around the outdoor environment. Just think about the multilingual, because the multilingual office is the strength in the shadow for years for our Portland Public School. They've been supporting teachers all the way to make sure that they have that connection and communication between community. And today with the investment, they can be valued. So I just want to be humble to say thank you. Thank you, because this is exactly what we mean about building a community for all opportunity that we bring into our students. And I will vote more than 100 to support that budget, to move that budget forward. Thank you so much, Superintendent, and a great, amazing team for the amazing work, and that's a robust budget that we bring in forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bondo. Ms. Russell-Vetter. Ms. Russell-Vetter, you're muted.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment that this is quite a budget to come in for my first one on the board, after Mr. Rodriguez commented on his years of different experiences. And I just feel so proud of this bold budget and the leadership that has come to this point. And I was just reflecting on the things that I was really struck by and just my observing over years as a engaged parent, and the things that, on the outside, it's easy to see things that aren't happening and the frustrations, and then to actually see the district really walking the walk with some of these pieces. First, I just wanted to mention, Make It Happen and Grace's work and all of the staff and students' work being recognized at the, at our national conference just was so just validating, right? That this work is being recognized and this work is being funded, right? That this work is central to how we're moving things forward in this school community. And so I just think that just spoke to the creativity and the work over time being recognized. And then I wanted to say that, hearing from folks the last few weeks, like Roberto mentioned in our last meeting, I just felt like that was what a meeting should be, right? That we really should be seeing and hearing from the breadth of our community, and to get all the emails that the rest of the board also got from folks in our community, just praising up and down our multilingual program. And so I just want to say that our investment there is long overdue, and I'm just really proud. I'm proud of the investments in the LAU plan. And just lastly, I just wanted to say, the social work investment is huge too, for us to be trying to get on par with the national standards. I'm really pleased with that. And just lastly, I wanted to say just my observation in my small school community over the years. And I remember talking to the superintendent about this as a parent, my observations about our issues with recruiting BIPOC educators. And I just feel like this is the piece that's been missing, right? And us talking about making cultural change. It doesn't just happen even with the best of intentions. And that's what I had observed. And so I just feel like this investment in recruitment, honoring identity-based work and the career pathways is huge. And I just feel like that is absolutely this district walking the walk and really putting that funding that's necessary to advance the movement forward. So I just wanted to say that I'm really, really pleased to see that and excited to support that tonight. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ms. Russell-Vetter.
Oops.
Is there any other board discussion? Mr. Burke.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm reflecting on a conversation that led me on my journey to be on the school board and to be a PPS parent. I was speaking with a former school board member, board chair, who was trying to help others like me, white and middle-class folks, peek through the gossip that we would hear about what a good school was and how Portland Public Schools compared to other schools that have a reputation of being really good schools, whether because they're basically they're affiliated with wealth, whether that's zip codes or their private status and who their community is. And she helped me see that Portland Public Schools is an amazing place for kids and families like mine, white and middle class. Our scores net out on par or better with those schools that in the neighborhood you might hear is a place where they sent their where other parents may have sent their kids. And I think that's changed since she had kids and when I'm raising my children, that people don't necessarily talk about Portland Public Schools the same way, but it's still there. It's part of the zeitgeist here. And part of what she made clear, what was something that she learned from the superintendent, was that Portland Public Schools doesn't have that same outcomes for our Black and brown students. And her hope and her dream as a school board member, former school board member, someone who remained committed to our schools and to our kids, was that changes, that someday Portland Public Schools is a great place for all our kids, especially our Black and brown students. And I see this budget as a significant down payment in making that a reality. I feel like I am fulfilling a transgenerational dream, if you will. I feel like the school board is an ongoing series of people that want the best for our community and our kids, and like waves on a beach, we kind of come in and we come out, and hopefully there's continuity over the years to make us go in a strong direction that really nets good results for our kids. And this is a moment where I feel like that's true. I feel like this fulfills her hope, and it certainly fulfills my hope for our schools. And I thank everybody that did their work to construct a budget and these investments that help us take a really big step in the right direction and making sure Portland Public Schools is the best place for all our students.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Is there other board discussion? Mr. Irish.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thanks. Similar to what Aura mentioned, this is my first budget. It's not my first time following a budget, but it's my first time having a say-so or participating in it. Thank you, Javier, for the conversation that we've had about it. It's been limited, but there's a lot, rightfully so, there's a lot of emotion wrapped around budget talks, and I understand the motivation behind the budget ask with respect to the Portland Promise. I don't disagree with a ton. I have personally, as Jeff Irish, not as a District 5 school member, I have some reservations with respect to how certain funds are allocated in the budget, and I think we could probably accomplish some of those asks internally. I think some of the budget being presented is under the premise that the city of Portland has or will be shortly in a post-pandemic economy. And I think I don't share that optimism. I have serious concerns about the ask that we're asking the city of Portland for the school board, for the budget as a whole. We have the benefit of having a small crutch on the federal side, but at some point in the next couple of years, we're going to have to roll back a lot of this stuff back into the local side of the budget. And once we start addressing the debt service, it's, when we start, in 2017, we voted for a bond to increase to refurbish some of the elementary schools. That in the next few years is going to be tagged onto that budget, and I'm just really concerned about this ask and how it portends in our future budgets. I think it's going to be it's a slippery slope, and I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Mr. Irish. Is there any other public comment? All right. I will say that I will very enthusiastically vote for this budget tonight. I believe this budget is an expression of our values as a school district and as a community. It's the result really of 5 years of painstaking analysis, examination, and reflection led by Superintendent Patana to understand how to address the deep inequities in our school district. And this budget really institutionalizes the district's equity work and begins to repay our education debt to our Black students and other students of color, as well to our staff of color and families of color. And what is really remarkable to me is that the board is so united around what we need to do as a district that the Finance Committee had 0 amendments to the superintendent's budget, and tonight we had only a procedural amendment. It's just unprecedented to have this level of clarity, unity, and commitment. And that's really as a result of the superintendent's vision and hard work, as well as that of his team. And I just want to express my deep gratitude to you, Superintendent Patana, and to every member of your cabinet and to the rest of the team for the extraordinary work that has gotten us to this point. Many, countless hours and meetings and incredibly thoughtful, hard work, much harder work than you needed to do. So we've gotten to this budget. I wanted to make clear to the public in terms of the numbers that we're talking about, that the budget would increase property taxes by 2.25%. So that's looking at the city and school rate overall, which is $3 a week, about $3 a week. So that's about the cost of a cup of coffee. It's an investment, but just an absolutely critical investment to address the fundamental inequities in our district. And now the ball will be in the City Council's court to support our plan and our values as a school district and community, and to approve this budget. And I look forward to that process and to working with the council to help the council understand why this budget is just so very critical, and why I know when it gets to the voters that it will have very strong, in fact, overwhelming support. So with that, we are ready to vote. So by roll call vote, please indicate whether you are in support of approving the FY22 budget in the amount of $125,154,700. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Bondo?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Irish?
No.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better?
Yes.
Ms. Trevorrow?
Yes.
Mr. Youssef?
Yes.
Ms. Chung?
Yes.
And Ms. Figdor?
Yes.
Can I also just comment that, and I know that the board members received correspondence today from Board Member Thompson, who, as Chair Figdor noted, is traveling, and so she's not going to be here today. But she did express support for this budget and said she would have voted for it had she been here.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Mr. Superintendent. So the motion passes with 7 members voting in favor, 1 opposed, and our student rep voting in favor as well. And the budget is passed. So thank you again, Superintendent Batana, and to the full team for just your tremendous work on this budget. And with that, we do not have any new business or personnel items, so we are ready to adjourn. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware of our meeting schedule. We don't have another meeting this month, so our next meeting is May 4th, Tuesday, May 4th. And that's it. Is there a motion to adjourn the business meeting? Ms. Batana, sorry, Ms. Bondo, excuse me, Ms. Bondo. Seconded by Ms. Russell Better. All those in favor of adjourning? It is unanimous and we are adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.